Hello everyone, this is Wolf. It appears I am under attack again. In the time lapse I went out and grabbed the stinging adversary that was hanging out there, and then I was going to be working on this a little bit, but then my game decided it didn't want to cooperate. Now I know why. After a reload, I have two stinging adversaries, one with a rocket launcher now bearing down on me, and this one's already opened fire on the voxel. Oh boy. I guess I have to wait for them to fall out of the sky now. Hopefully by morning they've fallen out of the sky, as I really want to continue salvage operations. Now, back to working on my fighter here. The design I'm going to be going with is, especially for the shielding of the nacelles. Oh, I have no steel plates. The shielding of the nacelles here is going to be pretty simple. These thrusters are very important in the design. So giving them the best level of protection possible is pretty high on my list of necessities. With that in mind, I'm going to be placing a fair amount of armor around these areas. Oops, that's in the wrong spot. Now, today I'm going to be mostly replicating the design that I have, finalizing and replicating, I should say, this design, and then copying it over on the second nacelle. Should be super simple. But the other thing that I'm also going to do today, once I have this stage done, is I'm going to start looking into areas where I can add heavy armor in. Now, heavy armor on a fighting ship is both essential and risky. I don't want there to be broad expanses of heavy armor on this ship. More weapons fire. Let's go up here. It's just the Gatling turret firing. There's already a couple of decent-sized divots directly over the base, right there where some missiles struck. So in those areas, they have a little ways to go, but missiles can drill through rocks, so this is why the armor's up here. So they can weather a few hits, and will give me some warning, so I know how to get out of this area to protect the equipment here. Because they're not shooting at the equipment per se as they're trying to shoot at me. So if I were to run away, they should hopefully run away. So, but that only just reinforces the necessity of this fighter. Alright, let's weld all this up real fast. I'm leaving this area clear because I haven't finalized what I'm going to put there. I'm thinking I'm going to put batteries in the nacelles as well. Just add a little bit more power capability to the overall design. Now I know I don't need to leave a gap open on the edge of the opening of the nacelle here for physics reasons, because the engine will function with or without an air intake, but for realism purposes I'm leaving it in there. And this is the basic design that I'm going to replicate on the front of the nacelle and leave the fronts relatively stubby. But in the back of the nacelle, come on, I'm actually going to have a method to the madness here of this, which is I'm going to put landing gear on these. It's simple enough to use the script that I'm going to be using, modify one of the functions in it to turn these into vector thrust landing gear. So they will rotate downward and I can land on the landing gear attached to them that way. All right. Next thing, number 5. And yes, I am essentially just copying the design from the other end with a few changes. So I will jump ahead to when that is completed. Alright, so these guys are continuing to shoot at the voxel. They're not getting through, which is fortunate. I still haven't suffered any damage up here, apart from... I think that's a divot that I drilled myself. But every so often I hear an explosion or a shot, and it just startles me slightly. So, I've been working on the design here. I decided to hide a battery in the front part of the nacelle there. Because again, combat design, redundancy, 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 redundancy. And did I mention the need for redundancy? There we go. So I'm just making this armor a little smoother in terms of look. I tried to use the inverted corners, but I decided I like these ones a little better with how they blend into the... Oops. How they blend into the overall design. And then along the bottom here, I'm going to put these half armor slopes. This will allow me to just create that extra bit of attachment and structural integrity. Now again, when building a combat design, you have to build with the anticipation of taking hits. Otherwise, you're going to take a hit and things will go very, very badly for you. To finish off this area, I'm actually going to extend another row of half armor blocks over it. But to do that, I need to very carefully make sure that I'm able to place a block in this space, which I cannot. Even though it doesn't look like they will interact, they will interact. So instead, what I have to do is add the extra little bit of armor that I wanted to put on this using the 2x1 tips. Like so. And then invert it over. Oh, nope, that'll clang. That will clang quite. It's already clanging a lot. As you can see, it just created some very interesting physics just by doing that. So I don't think I will do that instead. All right. And that was some more gunfire. Wait, one of the stinging adversaries has vanished. What happens? Oh, no. It's been shot. They shot each other. All right, well, this one's lost its antenna, so it's going to crash. And this one is just maneuvering around. Which means I might actually get some missiles. Is it worthwhile for me to... Is that scrap metal I saw it there? Yeah. It's shooting itself and there's scrap metal falling from the sky. Which means, is it worthwhile for me to tweak this design? I'm gonna say no. The reason I'm gonna say no is the only realistic place for me to place a rocket launcher is underneath here, or to drop this down a block. I don't really want to move that because I like how it creates the streamlined look there. And if I was to build anything in here, it would most likely be something very different. Oh, these thrusters, right? You're probably going to wonder, wait, they'll cook each other. Nope. These thrusters only go about 3 blocks along. So I could still leave this armor sheath here and be just fine, which is exactly what I'm going to do. But I am going to... So I've got, in the design so far, 6 small grid batteries. That may seem like a lot of power. It really isn't. It's probably going to be barely enough for me to fly this thing once it's actually finished. I'm going to need a fair bit more. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add an end cap here, using the connector. To pipe everything up, I'm going to use the various conveyor ports I have to make sure I have redundant layers of piping for a connector, and then put a battery, most likely in this spot. The reason for putting batteries in that spot is it will still leave the profile relatively short, but it'll allow it to maintain its length. And I think that is the more valuable thing to have here. As well, for this nacelle, I've attached the landing gear to it, which will allow me to land with this design pretty easily. So I'm going to jump ahead until I have the second nacelle finished. Alright, now we have 2 nacelles, both of which with their appropriate landing gear, and I've put the 2 batteries on here. Now for the connector, this connector has conveyor ports on the sides. However, there's a large conveyor in the way now. Yeah, there's a cat's paw out there now. That's new. What's the, cat's paw? What happened to the 2 stinging adversaries? Deposit number 1. I can't see anything in the dark. We've got one that's fallen in the entrance hole here. It looks like it's blown off whatever its weapon system was. Don't see any rockets or anything rolling around. Nor do I see an ammo pack. Interesting. There's an upside down one over here that I think has been here. Oh. Cat's paw still up here. And it's got 4 Gatling turrets. Yippee. Yeah, I think that other one must have crashed somewhere. That's been there. Don't see any other wrecks. That's been there. I don't know. I'm not confident this has been here for this long then. So I haven't looted. No, this is the new one because I haven't looted it yet. So it still has engines. So these are the two that just crashed. Intruder escort carrier. And it's launched another cat's paw at me. Now this is the reason why I'm building the fighter. These things. Yeah, this is like another little aircraft carrier. Okay. Launching cat's paws at me. Does cat's paw have anything different? No, just 4 Gatling turrets. Okay. Oh boy. Alright, well, in that case, I should be fine as I am, but still. Not damaging the door. The doors are protected by block. They are damaging the doors a little bit. Oh. I guess I need to get the armor plate in place to protect those, the blast door blocks I was going to put out there. Sooner rather than later, I guess. Alright. Still need the armor. Don't need any more power cells because I think I should be good with what I've got. I will, however, be needing to put gyroscopes in this thing. Yes, I noticed and observed that I haven't put any gyroscopes on here. There's a reason for that. The gyroscopes on any combat design I make are going to be plentiful. Because again, redundancy. But because it's a combat design and I'm going to put heavy armor in this, I'm going to need a fair few number of gyroscopes. So I need to make sure that when I do put them on here, I put them in places that aren't going to interfere with other critical functions. The 2 that I just placed right there will not interfere with critical functions and will be protected under the armor. So motors, construction components, large steel tubes, and computers. The other thing I'm going to need are some interior plates. I need a few more of those, a few of those, and a few of those. Okay. I'd like to put a total of 10 gyroscopes on this thing. That way I can do the same thing I did with my miner and have the ability to adjust the power of the gyroscopes as needed. Right now, with the gyroscopes that are in there, this is plenty powerful enough to fly. And be fairly maneuverable. Now, because of the design I have in mind, I'm going to have to tweak this wing a little bit, but I was anticipating doing that. So just marking this and removing these blocks to remind myself. All right. Okay. The easiest and most consistent way for me to mount a connector on here and still have it be contained with all of this is to put another O2H2 generator on here. There isn't really much purpose to me putting O2H2 generators on this design unless I'm also going to have, or more than one O2H2 generator on this design, unless I'm going to have hydrogen thrust. Hydrogen thrust is tricky in a fighter design. Yes, it can be used as a booster. Yes, it can have its very powerful at times advantages. But I don't think it's something that I'm going to want to do. The main purpose of the O2H2 generator in here is to be able to refill bottles. So I could use this as a long-range scouting ship, which I will put an ore detector, antenna, and other useful functional blocks on this. So instead, what I'm going to do are use these conveyors to go out about, yeah, that's far enough. Okay, and then, not my drill. Weld these up real fast, and then I will use this as a connection point for the connector itself. And this will all get protected behind armor. It also gives me a place to mount reactors for an eventual expansion of the technology in use. Small steel tubes. Now everything is nicely plumbed up. All right. To protect a lot of these components, I'm going to have to place armor, and not an insignificant amount of it. This is where the weight of the design is going to increase. So the armor I'm placing right now is only light armor around this area. However, it will protect these components, which is actually really quite important. These components are allowed to be damaged. It stands to reason that I will lose some functionality, especially if I put reactors in this area, which, to be perfectly honest, is an eventual thing I would like to do. When I eventually get uranium, this design is going to be a reactor-boosted and enhanced ship that won't really require much maintenance from me. At least that's the long-term goal. Now, it does look boxy and it does look ugly. That will change. This is all just preliminary stuff. Once I start putting some more effort into the armor detailing, like I did with the nacelles here, this will look a little bit better. So, with that, I'm going to jump ahead into when I have the basics of the standard armor sheath in position. Alright, and with that, the majority of the functional blocks are now covered up and tucked away. As a temporary measure, in the spot where I was going to put the reactors, I've placed this atmospheric thruster. This will be shifted down into the space below it when it comes time to put the actual reactors in. The bottom is covered in a layer of light armor, and pretty much the whole thing is covered up with light armor except for this area up here. And I wanted to do this area separate. So we're going to use the 2x1 slope bases for this area to create a very subtle shift from one particular ideal with this. So I'm going to use the 2x1 slope tips to finish this part off and extend forward to cover that thruster. but it's going to, as it slides back, it's going to extend forward over that way. So let's get this side covered up. The reason for this is it's light armor. Oops. It's light armor. It can take one hit. So we want to make sure that it's providing the best protection for the ship possible without interfering with that turret, which is the trick. The top and bottom are the areas that are most likely to get fired on. Most likely, with the way that this is going to be piloted, the bottom is the one that I'm going to have to worry about since it's atmospheric thrust only. So let's add that little extra layer on the top here. And weld it all up. This will give it kind of a intentional banding design, which I can then tweak as needed. In the back, once I'm done welding this up, I've placed blast door blocks, which is what I'm going to use in exchange of heavy armor because I really don't have that many metal grids to protect the more vital components in the back, mainly the batteries. But to add on to that, whoa. Looks like one of the cat's paws fell out of the sky. Yep. Wrecked itself up pretty good. So I just have to wait for the other cat's paw to fall. And that hunchback dropship's moving along here. Okay. Then I'll have a fair bit of salvage. Probably what I'll do next time. Right. I was going to remove this line of armor blocks going back a little ways. Its extra attachment purpose is no longer needed, but it will serve a purpose in the form of adding a bit more armored capability. All right. By putting the blast door blocks in here, which these don't deform, it can take a few more hits. One steel plate is pretty much a bullet. On the bottom here, I'm going to do something similar, probably in a banded design. That's, how far is that? That's over the thrusters. Okay. But not in too many places. I don't want to replace too much of this ship. I need its maneuverability. I did add 2 more gyroscopes in the design. But at the moment, that's all that I'm able to add for that. And I'm out of steel plates. And the other cat's paw just fell. Alright, so I've got some looting to do. So, it may not be a whole lot, but it does cover some of the critical components that do need to be covered. Then, because this area is the next most likely area to suffer fire, it's also going to get a layer of them. The top has the extra bit of armor covering it, so putting the blast door blocks in this area is only logical. So, there. Simple, minimalistic, and functional. I think I'm going to place another thruster underneath this one, just to have that extra little bit of redundancy, if I have the room for it. I do not. There's a gyroscope there. Okay. In that case, this goes back in there. Oops. Need to rotate that so... Ah! Damn it, I keep pressing the wrong button. So, as for the nacelles, I might put some more in there. Probably not, because it's pretty much not needed. Now, with that, next time I'm going to paint it and set up its critical functions after I do a bit of salvage. So, thank you for tuning in, everyone. This has been Wolf.